Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Dare to be Fearless. I am really excited about this episode because I have quite an announcement to make. But before I get into this episode, make sure you are following Dare to Be Fearless on social media, which is at Dare and then the number two, Be Fearless. And then my personal social media, which is Alexa_Curtis on Instagram and on TikTok, Alexa Curtis Unfiltered. Also on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, where I love to say my daily thoughts. So I think it's kind of my most favorite platform. I will say I'm very confused right now with what's going on with LinkedIn, and I've just been overwhelmed with how to handle all of these platforms. So, predominantly on the other platforms for the moment, and at some point here, I may go back to LinkedIn. But the other thing I will say before I get into this episode is I have been receiving literally 100 episodes a day for Dare to Be Fearless, which is awesome. I love reading them. Just a bit of background on how I choose the guests for this show. Number one, I usually find most of them myself or they're in my network. So if you're reaching out to me and your pitch is denied, it just is that at the moment. It just honestly doesn't interest me. I'm very specific with what interests me because I've been in business for so many years. And so, because of that, I really want to spend an hour or 2 hours talking to someone where I'm going to learn a lot from them as well as vice versa. And just if I'm getting pitched a very similar topic to somebody else I've had on, etc., I'm probably not going to learn as much as I would learn from the next person I may have on who I haven't met. So that's really how I go about that particular process with finding and sourcing the guests. If I find somebody online, if I read an article, etc., that's usually for the most part how I find guests for this show, just because that's what is interesting me at the moment. But please do continue to pitch, to follow up, and whatnot. I love to read those pitches. So, for the past 6 months, I have been building something that I am really thrilled about. That's my next chapter, venture, career, and honestly, what my gut intuition tells me may be kind of it for me. When I say it, I mean that idea that may move the needle in life. So, I'm going to talk to you about Chief Swag Officer, but what I want to talk to you about first is how my past year has unraveled and how I am now having created the number one selling company for custom foam for celebrities and talent and podcast hosts and whatnot. Most of you have followed me from the beginning. You know that I started my blog when I was 12. So for the past 10 plus years, I have been a budding entrepreneur. Now, obviously, quite a seasoned entrepreneur because I'm 26, but I started this blog when I was 12. And so between 12 and 14, I was doing so many things like reaching out to people, pitching myself, getting myself invited to Fashion Week, and experiencing just different parts of business that piqued my interest. I had no intention of ever making myself into a businesswoman or an entrepreneur. Thinking back to 2011, 12, 13, this career path was not common. Like, you would never see a college degree in 2014 about how to be an influencer. It just didn't exist. So I had no intention to make this into anything, but it was cool that it became something. And then when I ended up moving from New York to Boston, which I did because I wanted to be closer to my parents, and I also was really honestly struggling with living in New York, being so young, being so broke. So I moved to Boston, and while I was in Boston is when I ended up pitching that show to Disney. I had my podcast at the time, my first one called This Is Life Unfiltered, which over the years I had about 2 different co-hosts with. I had that show for about 2 or 3 years. I had also been on TV a lot of times, pitches that I had just sent out on my own and secured. So I had a lot of experience in particular with approaching and reaching out to producers and executives. However, when I emailed Disney, I also didn't expect them to reply. So I was shocked when I got the email back. And when I ended up getting the email back, I ended up subletting that Boston apartment. I moved to LA. I ended up getting a talent manager while I was there, and then ended up securing the Disney show and stayed in LA for years after hosting Fearless every day, even most of the time through COVID. A lot of people, I think, are surprised that I still have that LA apartment because anytime I'm there, people message me like, oh my God, how do you still have this apartment? Just so you know, and not that it's anyone's business, but I would like to put this out there because I'm a huge advocate for young people not wasting their money. I do not pay two rents. I do not pay for my rent in London and my rent on that LA apartment. When I decided to move to London, I actually before that, for the past year, even while I was living in Austin for years during COVID, I had a sweet setup with a friend of mine who saw something that I posted online, I think during the pandemic, that I was trying to sublet my LA apartment. And it was a friend of his, I think, that saw it. And he actually reached out to me. And long story short, anytime I'm in LA, he leaves. Anytime he's there, I'm obviously not there. I spend 99% of my time not in Los Angeles. But for me, the 3, 6, 9 weeks of the year that I'm there, it's very practical for me when I have my own place. Number one, I don't do well staying with people. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm really independent. I really value my routine. And also when I'm in LA, I'm trying to get so much done. Sometimes I have a TV segment. I love to entertain. So the place is mine. It's all of my furniture. A lot of my clothing are there, my shoes, but he also has stuff there, and when he leaves his stuff there, so it's very convenient. So in December, he's gone for like 4 or 5 months. I'll probably go back and forth a lot during that time, or maybe go out there for a month or so because it's available to me, and it just works for me. It really works for my lifestyle. So that was the apartment that I had right when that Disney show ended. That was really my first nice apartment that I was able to move into, and I just love it. And so that's kind of the story of the Disney and then leaving Disney. While I was at Disney is when I started building Be Fearless Summit, which many of you probably also may know. And it was those career development events. I have the tattoo Fearless, as you can see right here. I'm actually getting this removed on October 2nd. Not because I don't feel like I'm fearless anymore. I hate this tattoo. It's so dark. It's just, you can see, it's just way too dark, and it was really bad work done. It's the only one of my tattoos I hope to ever get removed is this one. But I started Be Fearless while I was at Disney. And so when I was at Disney is when I decided that that fearless moment and word really resonated with people. And so leaving Disney and transitioning into building that startup was kind of interesting transition because I went from entrepreneurship to working for a huge corporate company back to entrepreneurship. And so I really missed the people and the camaraderie that I think come with being at a corporate job. But at the end of the day, I am a through and through entrepreneur. And so Be Fearless, I did that for a while. I still do that. This isn't me saying that I'm not doing it, but over the years, and as I get into this story, I think you'll realize building community is incredibly hard to do, and it's incredibly hard to scale. Now, during COVID is when I moved to Austin. I participated in another relationship, another company that ended not well, and that company has dissolved, and I'm no longer affiliated with it. So that experience of trying to do it on a different level really didn't work for me. And so Be Fearless, again, I found that as much as I love the experience of hosting the in-person events and the community that I've built, I think it really is just that. I don't think Be Fearless is $1 million company. Like I, of course, would love to say myself, having, I think, made the word fearless, aside from Taylor Swift, really relative in maybe many people's lives through the Disney show and through the career conferences and whatnot. It's just not a type of company that you can really scale. And the more that I've participated in the world of startups and tech, over the years I've done a lot of consulting, I realized that I love building businesses. I love seeing businesses succeed. I love to see them not succeed, and I love everything in between. And so I would say maybe around the past 2, 3 years, predominantly while I was living in Austin, I started realizing that there was just this part of the back of my mind where I said, I really want to create a company that doesn't have me as the face of it. And I mean, I meant like an e-commerce brand or a snack brand. I was very invested in the CPG space, not something like a newsletter, not something like a podcast, like a real company that sells items overnight when I'm asleep. Because at the end of the day, I have built a name for myself as a personal brand and doing a lot with universities and making Be Fearless a thing, but it's really hard to maintain, I think, the rat race of influencing in this day and age. I really struggled to figure out how to make a lot of money and honestly pay my bills consistently with this. And it wasn't until earlier this year that I really realized that something had to shift in my life. So in October is when I came here for my birthday, London. It's about to be a year, which is great. And I went back to Austin and I got out of that apartment and I shipped half my stuff to LA, half my stuff to Connecticut to my parents. And then I came back here, I rented the flat, and now I've signed that lease and honestly have no intention to leave London at all aside from casual travel or going to the US for work reasons. But when I came here in January, I decided to start this thing called Alexa Curtis Consulting, which I still have. And it was really my goal for coming to London was to try and build a consulting firm that I think had more of a focus on founders and personal brands, because I just really realized how much I loved finding out how founders built their products and their brands. Like, there was something so cool about it to me, but I didn't realize how into it I was until living in Austin. I think in the Austin community as well, I mean, there's some really prominent founders I was around, and because it's such a small town, I mean, I would be out at Equinox or Soho House or the Austin Proper Hotel, and I mean, you'd be sitting next to the CEO of like a massive protein bar brand or a chocolate brand or a shoe brand, just because that's the Austin vibe. And so again, from those relationships, which was very different than when I was in LA and I was around more influencers, celebrities, I was able to really just see how cool it was to build a company where you were not the face of it. And I just really realized, like, wow, I would love to do that one day. But I didn't know. And I mean, even over the years, I had said to my mom, God, I wish I had an idea. And I know people look at me like, wow, you're successful. Why would you want to do that? Because my gut just told me this wasn't it. And I think it really hit me when I moved to London that I didn't know that I was going to be able to have longevity in this career path as like talent and influencing. I want to do it to where it's fun and I enjoy it. But when you get to the point where, which it has been for years, and there's been awesome years and not so good years, where you just don't know when your next bill is coming from, it's just really scary. And moving to a new country and realizing that I want to maintain some form of a normal life and not constantly be on TV or having to be on the internet or social media, it really started to hit me. And so living in Austin, being around those founders really inspired me. So when I moved here, my goal was I'm going to start this consulting company and build that up. And I was still doing that. And then I hosted that Be Fearless Summit in April. I made no money off of it, which I've talked often about. Those conferences don't make me any money. I mean, it is so expensive to run the conference. That was actually the first space I've ever paid for, between the food, even if it's for free, like the space and the planning. And I have a super tiny team who helps me with that. It's all my money, right? So that one in particular was incredible. I mean, it was definitely the best summit yet. But it was the one where I also lost the most amount of money because for whatever reason, we got no sponsorship money. So it was just all money. The money that I used to pay my rent is the money that I used to host an event like that. And again, it was phenomenal. And my plan was like, I had a business coach I brought on at the time who's one of my good friends. And I was talking to her about it. And slowly, it just really started to sink in for me that I didn't know what I was doing. So that's really the bulk of this episode before I get into now I know what I'm doing, is then the next day after that summit, I literally got canceled. So 24 hours following this incredible event, my life just flipped upside down. I don't need to go into detail. I know many of you probably know already what happened, but there was a 2-month period between April 28th of 2024 and I would say actually probably July 4th, maybe the end of June, where I was just in I don't know what to call it, but I would probably say a funk. I assume many of you have had these. They're very common. I assume people who leave their corporate jobs and decide to pursue entrepreneurship or who realize they're maybe in a job that they hate have experienced something like this. I personally had never experienced that period of almost 6 months of my life where I just had no idea what I was doing. And it was very scary. I think 50% of it from the marathon incident, on a personal level, it was very difficult for me to go through that as a young person and have nobody in my circle who understood what I was going through. So it was isolating. And then I think the other part of it was just that I had no interest in posting, right? Like all of a sudden what I've done for a career, I have no interest in doing because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know who to speak to. I don't know who to inspire right now because I was so depressed. And finally, come like mid-June when I got out of that depression, now I'm dealing with about 3 months of unpaid bills essentially. And I'm not sitting here in any capacity to make you feel bad for me because you shouldn't. I want to show you how this journey of just entrepreneurship in general is just this wild roller coaster. And you're going to be at the top of the roller coaster sometimes, and sometimes you're at the bottom. And then I think you really find that in between. And I thought I had found that on April 27th, like that perfect sweet spot. And then my life just shifted upside down. So I get out of this deep depression, and now I haven't worked in 2-3 months. I've started dipping into my savings. And because of that incident, and all of a sudden, everything that I knew about life and the relationships that I had and the people who I knew and this internet culture that I thought I had a grasp on, I realized I have no idea what I'm doing. And I just don't know that this is what I want to do anymore. And so I got out of that depression. I went home for July 4th. And about maybe 9-10 months ago now, I had tried to find a product. And so actually maybe close to a year, I was searching online trying to find this product, and I couldn't find it. And so I thought that's so strange. And every month, starting last year, right even when I moved to London, I would try and find this product, couldn't find it. I saw a few people online had them, which is how I was like, wow, I want that, but I couldn't find where to get it. I don't know why I never reached out to the few people who I saw who had them, but it just didn't go through my mind. I wanted to find it on my own. So I ended up finding one company. I ordered it from them. The product's like shit. Doesn't even come on time. The guy first cancels my order. It was just so complicated. And so over this period of time where I'm talking to my business coach, my therapist, my parents, trying to understand what the fuck I'm doing with my life, as clear as it may look online, the past 6 months have honestly been the hardest, I would say, 6 months of my life. There's stuff that I haven't and probably will never speak about that's occurred and happened to me in the past 6 to 12 months that's been traumatic and terrifying, and I don't think half of you would ever believe that this has happened. But on the upside, in that period of time, I moved across the world. I managed to start a new business. So I've had to learn to be a lot kinder to myself, because what has transpired over the past year and then being canceled and like everything that's happened, I honestly don't know how I've gotten through it. So anything that you're going through, just please look at the 1% that I'm telling you of what I've been through, and just know you're going to get through it, because I did, and I started a new company and I moved across the world. So I promise you will get through it. But anyhow, so I'm going through the motions of trying to find this product, and I literally just can't find this product. I can't source the product. I can't find the product. The one company I find who's doing it, and like, this is super stupid and it's not good. So this light bulb went off in my mind. So when I moved to London, I had no, again, intention of thinking, let me do this, but I just was like, I just want to find this product for myself. So come, I think, April, I was in New York for the summit, and then one day I went up to Westport, Connecticut, which is about 2 hours from where I'm from in Connecticut, to meet my dad. Sometimes when I'm home visiting my parents, but if I'm in New York, I'll meet them on the other side of the state because it's easier for me to get there from New York, and he had product to give me from the summit. So what I had done during that period of time of being back in the US was I was like, I am going to make this. Like, this cannot be this hard. So I'd take my dad to Staples, UPS, FedEx with the product, because I just was like, Dad, I've got this creative idea, and I'm not an arts and crafts girl. Like, if you know me, I can't even draw. I'm very creative. I love to write, but I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't even do Legos with my nephew. Like, I have a problem with creative things like that. It's just not in my mirror, is being able to do that stuff. So I bring my dad there, we go. I end up getting pieces of this product, but every place I go into, can't figure out how to do it. I'm like, this makes no sense. I go on Reddit. It's just like a lost cause. But again, I had this weird intuition, and I think if you're watching this and you're an entrepreneur, you may be able to relate. I can't tell you what this intuition is, but it's just almost this like feeling of like, something is here. But then I think there's the other side of entrepreneurship where you're like, is just this my mind being like, until you finally know you can't do it, is when you're going to give up. I don't know. So then I go back to New York. It's the day before the summit now. And I ended up pitching TaskRabbit. This is funny. I pitched TaskRabbit and I was like, please give me a credit to have people come to help me at the event. They end up giving me like a $200 or $300 credit. What I do with $100 of this credit while I was sitting at this space that I film Dare to Be Fearless out in New York, I hired a guy from TaskRabbit because I was like, you know what? If I can't figure this out, let me hire this guy. This guy shows up. He literally can't speak English, which is totally fine. But, I didn't even know what to – on TaskRabbit, there's all these categories you can find people from. I have no idea what to do. So I hire somebody who's like assistant. I give him written instructions, which I end up translating into Spanish because he doesn't speak English. And I gave him the product and I said, go to UPS and go to FedEx. Like they can't do it in Connecticut, but they're going to be able to do it in New York City. Like we're in effing New York City. I say, go and make this happen for me. And I sent, I show him a photo of what I want. An hour and a half, he comes back later and he's just like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? I was like, and do not say no because I told you, and this is what I do with every freelancer I hire. I want to know within the first 15 minutes of a task if you cannot complete this task because you will not be invoicing me for something you knew within 15 minutes you could not do. And this is very common with freelancers, right? An hour in, they'll be like, oh, I just took me an hour and I couldn't figure it out. You knew you weren't going to be able to figure it out. Please just tell me. I don't know, maybe because of the language barrier or something, he doesn't. I get billed $150 and I'm left yet again, no luck. It's now the day before the summit. I wanted this product so bad for the summit to do interviews at. So I'm just losing my mind. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. This is never going to be anything. It obviously doesn't work. I don't know how anyone else has done this because it's impossible to do. So I look up printing shops now in Manhattan. I go one by one down the list on Yelp, call all of them. Everyone's like, you need to call Jim. You need to call Rob. You need to call Bob. I ended up getting this guy on the phone, Greg. Okay. Greg is like on 54th and 7th. He's got a printing shop. I send him what I want done and he's like, come to the printing shop. We'll do this. And I was like, amazing. So I pack up my bag from this podcast studio. I go over to 54th and 7th. I show up to like this hoarder's paradise of a printing shop. Obviously, the guy's had this shop for like 30 years. Long story short, it's maybe I show up at 3 p.m. At 7 p.m., okay, Greg looks at me and is like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do it. What ended up transpiring is I don't know if Greg just wanted to hang out for an hour, talk to me for an hour, like have a pretty girl in his space for an hour. But at the end of the time, I was like, look, Greg, we've had a great afternoon together. I really have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, but I'm also getting the sense you cannot do what I need you to do. So can you just be honest and tell me, can you fucking do this? I was like, from one entrepreneur to another. This guy's like 57 years old. Can you do this? He was like, no. And I was like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I was like, I was living all the way on the west side. I had rented an apartment with my friend on 72nd and 1st. And I was like, you have just wasted 6 hours of my time. So here's what we're going to do, Greg. You were going to order me some sushi because I'm starving. And you were going to drive me home to 72nd and 1st. That is what he did. I got in Greg's car. He got me sushi. He dropped me off. He was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I got sushi out of this, no problem. But I was like, I just would have liked to know you're not even a freelancer. And I would have liked to know. What we did end up doing was making like a stickered version of it. I mean, it sucked and there was nothing there, but I used it at the summit. So, anywho, from that moment, I became obsessed with this idea. I'm like doing still some consulting stuff, influencing, like posting on the internet, but I had made a decision with my business coach and with my therapist that because of what happened in April, I needed to start being a lot kinder to myself. And I was going through the motions of just trying everything for years, right? Like even building Be Fearless, it didn't pay my bills. So I'm doing these consulting jobs or these PR jobs or whatever to just make it happen and like be able to live while posting about my life on the internet and inspiring you guys through this podcast because it doesn't pay me 10, 15 grand a month. I think many of you may be thinking like, wow, I thought you were making $40,000 a month off the internet. I'm not. And honestly, I never had. I've had over the years, in particular, the end of last year into this year was a great year. I had an incredibly lucrative brand deal where it just covered my expenses every month and I made extra off of that. And then, what happened in April kind of put me in this position of like, where I just felt like I was at a turning point with myself and my career, where I just was like, I don't want to rely on the internet to pay my bills for the rest of my life, because I don't want to necessarily, who knows, right? I don't know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. And that experience really taught me that for a fact. And so I decided, like, I was going to make this happen. And so I get back to London after the summit. I go in this depression, right? Which sucked. But I had a calendar invite, and I'll put a photo so I prove to you like how determined I was about this idea. I had a calendar invite on my calendar every single Friday that said launch the store, launch the store. Now, back last summer, I had a good friend of mine from LA visiting, and she's like drop shipping. And so she actually was like, you need to get into it. What drop shipping is not what Chief Swag is. Drop shipping is essentially where people do make tons of money a month. I think she makes like $1,500 or $2,000 a month. And it's essentially where you create a store predominantly on Etsy or eBay. And people who want things printed can go to you. You have a manufacturer in the middle. And then the other side of it is that's who does the printing. So really, it's like residual income for you, and you have to do nothing. And you see a lot of these stories. Really, they seem like Ponzi schemes, drop shipping. You'll see like 22-year-old makes $5 million a month selling t-shirts, or like 30-year-old started basement drop shipping company, now makes billions of dollars a year. And so she was kind of doing that. And so I actually I had launched a store about a year ago. I just couldn't figure it out. And I think also because I had been dabbling in so many different things, knowing I just needed consistent income in my life, I never really gave myself the ability to take full attention to an idea for honestly my whole career, because I've never had like a savings like where I had, I guess now, where I was able to just say, okay, what I've gone through is honestly really traumatic and awful. I need to take a few months and figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And because of that, I'm just going to dip into my savings and pay my rent, and I'm not going to invest, and I'm probably going to go to a little bit of debt from this, but let me just give myself some time. So every single month I had this thing on my calendar. Now, because I couldn't figure out how to make the product, I was like, every week to my assistant, with a Google Calendar invite, you can say propose new time. Every week I did that. Propose new time, propose new time. Just couldn't do it. Because I don't know, because it felt like very intimidating me to participate in something that I had essentially already tried and knew I couldn't do. But again, there was just something in the back of my mind. And 3 months ago, actually, I walked out of WeWork and I just had a breakdown. I sat on the stairs. You guys are going to think like I'm so emotional. I'm not really that emotional, but just the past 6 months have been just pure hell for me, like on a personal and a business thing. It was really difficult. And I called Serena and I honestly just broke down. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm getting into debt. I have no idea really what I'm doing with my life. I haven't gotten any brand deals. And I said to her on the phone, I've got this idea for this company, but can't figure out how to make the product. But there was just this mini glimmer of hope that I've almost never had in my like a bone in my body, where I felt like I needed to, because I knew I was almost at the end of the road with what I would say is really trying to make my personal brand this multi-million-dollar career, because I just don't know it's ever going to get there, and I don't necessarily want to bank on that happening. To like almost, do I need to find a job, which I tried to do, and it's impossible, and I think I would rather just go DoorDash than ever find a job. I wouldn't even know what to do. So I give a lot of you credit. But I did think about it for a split second after being canceled in April. I was like, I'm going to get a job because I never want to be on the internet again. Like how that turned out. And so I said to her, but I've got, that's the thing that's keeping me along. And I said that I would say it to my therapist every week, and then I would procrastinate the idea, which I never do, procrastinate. And then every week would go by, and every week, May, June, it's like start the shop. And I would say, send me a new calendar invite. Now come, I think maybe August 1st. Or actually, sorry, no, it was probably the first week of July. I'm on the phone with my sister, who constantly, if you're an entrepreneur, you can probably relate to this. She constantly asks me on the phone, like, I just don't get how you make money. And I say the same thing. Half of it's from the internet, influencing, podcasting, whatever. Half of it's from consulting. And I don't know if she has Alzheimer's or what, constantly forgets. Her husband constantly forgets. I try to now take it not so sensitively, but I always find it very offensive, whatever. And so I said to her, like, I was like, you know what? I'm so sick of you asking you that question. You know what I want to do, Melissa? I want to fucking print on foam. And she was like, what? And I was like, I've had this idea for months. And she's a stay-at-home mom, but she used to have a really awesome career. She used to work in fashion. I think that's kind of where I got my fashion side of me, is from my sister. And I said to her, but I can't figure it out. I spent 7 hours with a guy named Greg in New York. I hired a TaskRabbit. I went everywhere in Connecticut looking, can't figure it out. She was like, send me what it is. So I sent it over to her and she was like, I think I can do this. And I was like, what? Like, how do you think you can do this? And she was like, come to Switzerland, which is where she lives. And she was like, we'll do it. And I was like, okay. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, you know that idea that I had in April when I dragged Dad all over Connecticut? And my mom was like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to Zurich. I just needed someone to tell because I think Melissa may be able to help me. She was like, great. Because she also knew, like, she's my mom. She knew that I've been really struggling and that I really felt lost and stuck and like didn't know what to do and didn't know if I wanted to do this personal brand anymore. So I fly to Zurich. And my sister has 2 kids, but this particular week, I think like her husband was out of town and they usually have help. The help wasn't there. And so it is literally 7 hours before my flight. I literally flew there, put $500, right? Which should never be that expensive, but it was last minute. I was like, I got to get her while I can to figure out if there's something in this idea that I have. 7 hours before the flight, I was like, Melissa, I literally have to go to the airport. I love you so much, but like, I don't have the kind of money you have because, you know, you're married. I spent a lot of money to fly here. Like, I need you to fucking do this. She was like, okay, so we go to the store, we get the stuff that I think we need. We end up doing it. We're able to create a small mock-up version of this product. And it was like very choppy because we didn't have a lot of time. I need to go to the airport. I'm like trying to get her to help me. She's now busy with the kids. I end up launching this shop, this website. And I just was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what to call it. I'm like looking online for the tags. It was like a little bit sloppy because I didn't know how to do it. I just wanted to have photos. And I just wanted to really cross this off my bucket list. I had no intention for this to be a thing, right? I just was like, screw it. I've now had this idea for like a year. Can't figure out how to make it on my own. Now I've got a small mock-up that I think I can use. So I launched this shop. I run to the airport. I'm late. I almost missed the flight. It's like an hour and a half, I think, flight from London to Zurich. I land in Zurich. I turn my phone off airplane mode. And you know that sound you get on Venmo, or I think probably Venmo is the only one people would relate. It's like a little ding. I'll play it so you guys know because I need a sip of my coffee anyway, so it's fine. I hear probably 30, 40, 50 of those dings. And I'm like, what is this? I've never heard this particular like ding. It's like a cha-ching. And I'm thinking like, what the fuck? So I look at my phone. I'm on the tube now, sprinting to another event that I had gotten back in time for from London City Airport to this like KPMG event. I look awful. I'm like crazy. And I just like, my whole body froze. I can't even tell you the feeling. It actually like, even now it makes the hairs on my arm stand up. I had like close to 100 orders. And I'm just thinking like, I'm like, this must be like spam. Like, and I called my mom and I just started crying. And I just was like, I think I figured it out. And I was like, I think there's something here. And that's essentially, I don't mean to like have tears come to my eyes, but just to think of what I went through in the past year and past 6 months and to look back on that gut intuition of mine that said, you know, you really at some point in your career here, you want to start a product-based company. You want to start something that's yours, but doesn't mean that you have to be the one who's the face and center of it. And that's what I've done. So I'm going to show you guys what this product is so you can see in some of the ones that we've done. In the past months since launch, we've made product for the Emmys, for the Olympics. We made products for Pandora. We made products for Hello Magazine. Some of the biggest influencers and celebrities have bought product from us. Some of them have also like sent in original orders not to disclose, so I won't go into too much detail, but that's essentially what happened. So this is, some of you can probably see it. This is a Spotify one. This is a Fiverr one. Now, the particular product that was the first launch of Chief Swag, which is, the first name I had was called Cast Gear, Cast with a K, and the second one was Chief Swag, which is like so much cooler. Chief Swag Officer is just great. And I waited to talk about this and to tell you guys what I was doing because, well, number one, for like half of this year, I had no idea what I was doing with my life. And so I had nothing to like share. And then I wasn't going to tell you this idea because why would I tell you an idea that I couldn't figure out how to create and how to produce? And then, second of all, I wanted everything to be aligned. I wanted the shop to have been live. I wanted the trademarks to have been put in. I wanted to know that this was a company. It was in at least there was like proof of concept and whatnot, which I got quite fast with this, which was incredible for me. So this is the standard that fits the Rode handheld. That's the one you guys see on the street where like people are going up to people with street interview mics. This is one for Smartless, which is really cool. And then this is the one that we do. There's tons of different colors. That's for different microphones. So there's one that's called like the Shure, I think M357 version. This is the one that says Chief Swag Office, which is obviously company logo on one, which is like our promo product. Then the other second bestseller is actually these things called mic flags. So this is what you see a lot of people on red carpets and whatnot using. So this is actually, we made one for Traded VC. This is one that goes around the microphone. We have them for Rode mic as well, but this is just the standard one. That's if you're more like a traditional on the red carpet type of person. And so we've had a really good mix between corporate orders as well as just B2C, which is like, right to the customer. I would say the main bulk of the orders that has done the best is like the wholesale and corporate custom orders, which I love. And so this was actually what I was trying to find. I actually don't have the one with me today, but the original one that I had was called Alexa Curtis. That's just what it was. And that was what I was using for a while until I really figured out how to produce it. So in the past few weeks, what I've really been doing is aligning kind of our product lineup. We've been launching a lot of new products in the sense of colors and microphones. Some of them are premium colors. So for example, the white is really specifically sourced. It's also very hard for us to make the white. So that's more of a premium. But that standard one, again, is that traditional Rode handheld. That's where we find most people want it. But there's so many different, podcast microphones from like this one to another one. So we're really working on a full lineup of all of the microphones that are out there. And I really see Chief Swag Officer being kind of that it for me. I think, there is a lot of work to be done. I hired somebody who is, I guess, kind of acting as a business manager, and he is the best person that I ever found. I also am really excited because my kind of mentor through this is the founder of Hydro Flask, who offered to mentor me through this process, which is awesome. Travis Roback, if anyone knows who that is, which is an incredible, huge honor because Hydro Flask is also, an incredible company. And I was on the phone with him telling him about the idea, and it was so funny because he said to me, Alexa, I have been waiting for the next billion-dollar idea. And he said, in my mind, I kept thinking whoever comes up with how to crack the code on making these custom, it's going to be. And that was just it was just the coolest thing ever to have somebody say that to you. And so that's what I've been doing. That's my next venture. Be Fearless will maintain itself. I plan to still maintain, my life as an influencer and whatnot, but this is really the company for me that I think is kind of going to be the rest of my life, fingers crossed. And so what I meant to say just now is the first person that I hired, I had no intention to hire someone, but it kind of got out of control really fast for me in the sense of like trying to understand this world of e-commerce. I've never built an e-commerce business, and this is also not drop shipping. These are custom premium products we're making. So the way that drop shipping works, where somebody wants a shirt made, you link it to a drop shipper on, say, Printful. Printful delivers the order to the drop shipper, and the drop shipper sends it. That's not it's either me making this product or one of our manufacturers. So it's not like drop shipping. It's very custom and it's very manual. So I don't want anyone to think like, oh, let me do what Alexa's done and I'm going to make $5 million a month. You may do that if it's drop shipping, but it's not like that with this particular company. But I was introduced to Richard maybe a few months ago now by somebody I had met at Tech Week in London. This guy I met at Tech Week in London introduced me to another guy named Ollie, who I decided to shave my face earlier and I cut myself. It's really dumb, I know. And he introduced me to his cousin, who used to be the CEO of Sunglasses Hut, which is awesome. And actually, for about 2 months, we had conversations. Sometimes it's nice to just meet somebody on the phone and have a conversation with them, even if nothing comes from it. And that was what actually happened with Richard. On our second call, I was talking to him. I had just gotten back to London. And very briefly on the phone, I was like, look, I think I've started this company. I think that there's something here. And I was very cautious with who I told, obviously, very early on. I didn't want people to steal my idea, etc. And he said, like, tell me a bit about it. And I told him a bit about it. And I was like, there's parts of this that I really don't understand. I've never done e-commerce. I have no idea how to source, how to manufacture. I don't think I got lucky with this doing so well, so fast. But I will say that I think it's going to make or break how I figure out how to find and manufacture and produce this product. He ended up sending me a proposal. We ended up very fast kind of working together to create this deal where I really just hired him as a consultant / business manager. And we've had some incredible conversations since. He has been instrumental in helping me find the right manufacturers and printers for this particular idea, for launching the website. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you can't be good at everything. And I've really learned that. And I knew that when I entered this space, is that the way that this was going to make or break was if I could figure out how to do this without a co-founder. Personally, I would never have a co-founder again. I will never do anything with anyone else. Maybe knock on wood, like unless I was already very wealthy, I will never participate in any other relationship with somebody in business. So because of that, I knew that these kind of companies do the best with co-founders. I just would never want to do that again. And so I was just well aware that the people that I told and the decisions that I made very early on with Chief Swag were, again, going to be instrumental. I would say that up front, it cost me probably, including what I paid him, maybe $10,000. And it's a lot of money, but within the first month, like I said, I knew that I was onto something. I knew that it would make its way back to me. And I'm just really glad that I followed that gut intuition and that I did this at the timing of it. I also think how crazy it is because when I look at how many times I rescheduled that calendar invite, right, with my assistant, and I had the idea the day before the summit. Think if I had launched that idea, that product, right, the day before the summit, and then I got canceled, and then my whole life flips upside down, and then I get depressed, it would never have been what it was. I needed to take the time for myself and to pull out of my savings, which I'm so glad that I had, which I've worked my ass off to create some form, even a very, very small cushion for me in case anything went wrong in my life. I was so glad that I had made that decision. Because I know a lot of young people don't have savings and it's so hard to save nowadays. But honestly, I saved most of that money when I was younger. Like I always was saving $100 a week, $200 a week, wherever I could. 5,000. Like if I was paid 20 grand, I'd put 5,000 of it away and save like the 15 to live off of for, X amount of months. And so I was really glad that I had done that because when that incident happened in April and then I had to take like that 2-3 months off and I spent, I would say like thousands on myself getting through that in the way that I mean, like not making any money, not being able to work and having to pay my rent, pay my bills, try not to go into debt from going through that. But I had never had any moment in my life where I had just given myself, number one, space to breathe and just live. Like when that happened, I went to Zurich and just spent time with my nephews and I wasn't on the internet and I was very present. It gave me a sense of calmness because the reality behind influencing and being online and like doing what I do for a career is that you always have to be on. You always have to be on, but there will always be somebody better than you. There will always be somebody who gets more followers than you. And I always knew that I had a mission and a meaning that meant so much to me that I wanted to inspire people by. But like I have never amassed that 1 million followers to where I think I could be making 100 grand a month. And I think even then, if that is the way that I had gone, I always would have had that fire inside of me to actually start a company that was like a product-based company where I can show up to a meeting and I can sell you Chief Swag and you can look at me and say, I don't think you're cool and I don't think you're pretty, but I like your product. So having that intuition that I knew I really wanted to do something like that with was just so cool. And I think, because I've done the influencing and online stuff and whatnot for so long, I was only really learning by having people on this show. I wasn't necessarily learning something new every day about business. And that's, when I had this idea and I've been able to scale it, and now we're becoming the number one company for custom mics and covers in the world, which is just amazing. I've been able to learn something every single day. And I have this newfound excitement about waking up. It's overwhelming because, you're dealing with customers and orders 24/7. You've got people who want to change something and their ad just needs to be changed. And it's a very small team I'm working with at the moment, but a mighty one. And I'm just so excited for the next step of this journey. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I will put everything in the show notes about where to find Chief Swag Officer. If you have a microphone or you have a cover and you want it made or redesigned, please let us know. We also have helped a lot of people make the logos for the covers because a lot of people don't have logos that they like. So we also can step in and help with that. And I'm just excited. I'm excited, and I really hope the bits and pieces of what I've told you about what I've gone through in the past 6 months to a year, but really the past 6 months, and the depression and the anxiety and the not knowing what I was doing inspires you to just push through it and to get through it. But I just wish I had realized sooner on in my career, being honestly this cancellation, that you need to be kinder to yourself. I didn't realize how much I was living to be valued by my career and not living to live. My career is like everything to me, and especially now building this, it's become my whole world and what I see my future being. But it's also something that I need to turn off at certain times of the day or in the evening. And I think until I went through what I've gone through and came out of it, having moved to another country and started now the number one microphone custom cover company like in the world, I just didn't realize the power of sometimes it's fine to take out of your savings. I'm probably going to be the only person that's going to tell you like it's okay to go into a little bit of debt. Sometimes you have to. I did, and I have, and I've gotten back into it sometimes and out of it sometimes, and now getting out of it, but I had to go into a little bit of it again because I went through this traumatic situation, and just it is what happened to me. But on the bright side, it's what you do after it that really matters and how you come out of those kind of scenarios. And that's what I'm excited about. So I'm going to put everything about Chief Swag in the show notes. Please DM us on Instagram. Of course, if you have certain things that you want to know about or new microphones that you come up with that you want to be created, let us know. We are now producing all of the microphone covers from Rode to Shure to Sennheiser. I think that's like the 3 main ones that we're doing in different sizes: blue, red, pink, purple, white, green, orange, literally everything you can want. And so every time you see one of these on somebody's custom microphone, you can say, I know the girl who started that. So yes, okay, well, stay fearless. Nothing is changing besides what I spend pretty much all of my time doing. So Be Fearless is still happening. Dare to Be Fearless is still happening, etc. But there will probably not be a future Be Fearless event for the foreseeable future while I build and scale this up. So yeah, that sucks. But at the end of the day, I love the community that's built. I love everyone in it. There is still the premium subscription of Stay Fearless or Die Trying. So if you do want to have a phone call or anything with me, if you subscribe to that newsletter, the premium version, there is a monthly webinar. So you do get that, which I'm excited about as well, which I'll put in the show notes. Make sure to follow me on social media at Alexa_Curtis, as well as at Dare to Be Fearless. And I'll see you guys next week for a new episode of Dare to Be Fearless. Due to age and children. Hey Siri, what's up, Jackie Franklin? I need to go to the gym. If you really need me, I'll come. Otherwise, maybe could we meet somewhere else or after I work out? ?
Okay.
So I want to explain the story of how this came to fruition. Now, I had this idea probably about a year ago. I tried to produce it on my own for months, could not crack the code. Literally every single week, I tried to figure out how to do it, and I was getting so frustrated and I couldn't do it. And then the running incident happened in April, and it really put me into this, what I would say, different trajectory for my career. And I got really depressed, and it was just a really rough time for me. And so I've taken some time to figure out what my next chapter is, but I will tell you, I kept coming back to this. And I'm so glad I did, because we are almost about to be the number one selling company for custom foam in America and the United Kingdom and the whole world. We just did a massive order for the Emmys, for Good Morning America, for the Olympics. And you would probably have no idea, because I've been doing this for some time now, and I haven't posted anything about it because I wanted to wait until it was ready, and now I'm ready. So meet Chief Swag.